How's it going, everyone? Vlad here, and welcome back to the channel. Today, as you can see by the title of the whiteboard, we're talking about production or manufacturing bottlenecks. And so the reason why I wanted to have this conversation is that more often than usual, I've been running into conversations with specific customers where it seems that there is not a deep understanding of what bottlenecks are. Ultimately, that is one of the reasons why you want to deploy certain SCADA and MES type of functionalities so that you could understand and eliminate the bottlenecks of a specific production facility. That being said, until you have a feel and a general understanding of the fundamentals, it is very difficult to have some of those conversations. So if you're in automation engineering, if you're in manufacturing and operations, if you're a decision maker, if you have not had this conversations with perhaps your CI or continuous improvement teams, I highly recommend that you spend a little bit of time on that side. There's many university courses. My goal today is to keep it short and explain the concepts in a theoretical standpoint. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the math side. There's a lot of books on this as well. If you have not read The Goal by Goldratt, I highly recommend that book. That being said, let's get right into it. So what is a bottleneck? The bottleneck is basically the machine or the constraint that will limit your production rate on a specific manufacturing site or specific line. So obviously the name is derived from a bottle. If I were to illustrate this with a full bottle of water or any other liquid, if I put the bottle upside down, the constraint by which the water is going to flow out of that bottle is going to be the bottleneck because that's the narrowest point of the bottle. So the same way, the bottleneck is going to be the constraint in the manufacturing space. Let's get a little bit more practical. Let's start with an easy example. Imagine that I have here at the end of my line a palletizer. A palletizer is basically, if you're unfamiliar, a machine commonly used in, I would say, almost every manufacturer that receives a couple of inputs. Here we're going to have cases, so case of product. Here we have pallets, and the output, of course, is a full pallet that then goes on a shipping truck and is sent to the distributor or its final destination. In this case, if you only have a single machine that, for example, does 200 cases per hour, which is equivalent to whatever number of pallets, if the machine goes down, right, but this number is going to be important in just a moment, so 200 cases per hour, if this machine goes down, this entire line is basically down. So in this case, it's very simple. The palletizer is basically the bottleneck. So the better the palletizer is able to run, the better the production is going to be. Of course, the faster the palletizer is able to produce these pallets, given an infinite inflow of cases into the machine, the better the production is going to be. So if I were to consult with a client that has a single palletizer, I would come into the facility and say, your palletizer is the only machine, therefore it's the bottleneck. So if you can increase this 200 cases per hour throughput, you would have a better production facility. Now, this becomes a little bit more complex as you start adding machines. So here in this case, let's assume that the machine that feeds the palletizer is going to be the case packer. So the case packer is going to receive packages that need to be put in cases. So let's assume it's bottles that are put into cases that are then palletized. So here I'm going to say bottle or bottles at a specific rate. And let's assume that this case packer is able to also produce at the same rate as the palletizer. So 200 cases per hour. And of course, here we have an input of cases, usually that comes in cardboard boxes. You have a huge stack that's going to be taking off a single case at a time to fill with however many bottles. We'll get to that in just a moment. But let's assume that it has the exact same rate as the palletizer. So the intuition of someone who's looking at these rates without seeing the actual production numbers will tell you both of them are basically the bottleneck because they have the same production rate as each other. However, it becomes a little bit more complex in reality because now you're looking at machines in the tangible, so to speak, world. So the only data that you truly have to go off of is historical information, right? And so this is where metrics like OEE, for example, can come in and tell you your rate that the machine should be running at is 200 cases per hour. But in reality, because of the downtime, because of the stoppages, because of maybe the operators, or because of other issues on the line, the real rate that it's running at is going to be 190 cases on average, again, per hour. And so your palletizer, for example, instead of running 200 cases per hour, it's running 170. So what's going to be the real scenario that you're likely to observe if those are the values of the real systems as you see them historically versus what you're specified to be looking at? Again, your intuition is going to tell you that usually the palletizer is going to be backed up. So backed up is a state where basically in this case you're going to have a buildup of cases on the conveyor feeding in from the case backer into the palletizer. Now, once again, I'm oversimplifying because in the real world, this can get quite complicated. As your palletizer goes down, the length of this conveyor, meaning the buffer, is a very important constraint as well. Logically speaking, if you have an infinite conveyor, then your case backer could simply produce so many cases that the palletizer would always be the bottleneck, meaning that it has so many cases to process that it simply is unable to keep up with the case backer, and because it's running at a slower rate, it is therefore the bottleneck. The reality, of course, is going to be a little bit different. So in reality, you're going to have times, and again, this is where your data comes in, where your case backer is going to go down and the palletizer is going to be idle, right? So the palletizer is starved for new cases and it's going to be waiting on production. However, if we look at averages, right? So again, if we go back to the averages, and if we say that there's basically no conveyor to buffer those cases, then in this specific scenario, your palletizer is going to bottleneck the entire line since it's only processing 170 cases in reality out of the desired 200 cases per hour. And so this becomes extremely important not only to eliminate the bottleneck, but also to schedule further production. So if I'm looking at a specific SKU to run the next shift or maybe next day or next week or next month, then I'm going to be taking into account some of the real values on the historical basis to understand how many cases or how many pallets of product I can reasonably produce. Now, of course, the problem becomes compounded as we add more machines, and I think we can spend an entire day, if not an entire semester worth of lectures trying to understand where this is going to bottleneck. But basically, you're going to have different machines on the line. So for example, in this case, when it's a bottle, let's assume that this is going to be some kind of a sleever that puts the label, the plastic wrapper on your bottle. So this is sleever, which is also going to be bottles here. So bottles plus sleeves. This is going to be some kind of a roll. This could be maybe a shrink wrapper. This could be maybe your barcodes. So the barcode needs to be applied on the cap, the capper. It could also be the seal for the cap. So there's going to be an induction capper. But I do want to come to a very important point, and this is the clash between the process and the production or packaging sides, which is very important to understand because it comes into constraints quite frequently. And if you don't have this understanding and basically the transition between these processes, you can be missing out on quite a few conversations. So what do I mean by that? So let's assume that this is the filler. And so filler, for a variety of reasons that I will explain in just a moment, is going to be the main bottleneck for many food and beverage facilities. And the reason for that is because the filler is the machine that changes the process side into the packaging or discrete side. So what do we mean by that exactly? So in your process side, you have a variety of different tanks and you're cooking different batches, right? So you have maybe mixers, you have pumps that go from tank to tank, you have different ingredients, you can have cooling systems. But basically what you're doing is you're cooking a specific batch into a finished product. And I say cooking a little bit in quotes because it could be brewing, it could be fermenting. So there's a lot of different processes. But I guess at this stage, you have a holding tank that's going to feed into the filler, and your filler is going to receive jars or bottles, or again, it could be pouches. There's a lot of different options, but imagine that this is bottles, and it's going to put whatever liquid or whatever food into the container to then flow on a discrete conveyor. So again, on the process side, you're going to use very different metrics for your bottlenecks versus your discrete side. So on the process side, you're going to have high degree of failure of the entire batch, versus on the discrete side, you can actually look at counts at specific machines, which means that on the batch side, you can usually replay the different conditions and the different states, but it is very difficult to say that we're going to dynamically adjust a batch to, for example, have less ingredients that have already been put into it. That is almost never possible. So you're going to have a tank that's going to fill in, I don't know, let's call it 480,000 pounds. And if that batch is good, it's going to be sent to the filler to then be packaged. If that batch is rejected for, let's say, quality reasons or for any other mechanical or process failures on the line, that entire batch is going to be discarded, in most cases thrown into trash or for rework, depending on what the process is, of course. But on the filler side, we're starting to get basically unit counts of each product, and we can then determine the quality of each product and thus understand and correct the process at every step. So for example, the filler is going to have a rate. The sealer, right, or the capper or whatever is going to have a rate. The case packer is going to have a rate. The palletizer is going to have a rate. And they're basically almost independent machines. Of course, they're dependent on the inputs of the previous machine as well as some raw materials, but ultimately we can look at the data for each individual machine, versus on the process side, it's going to be more of a batching process. And there's going to be a variety of different systems that allow you to process the data on the batching side, and a variety of different systems that allow you to process the data on the discrete side. But to come back to bottlenecks, the reason why the filler is going to be very often the bottleneck is because if the filler goes down, there's basically no jars coming into the packaging area. And of course, you could create a buffer, right? So you can create a belt that fills up from the filler before it goes into the sealer, giving you a little bit of time to fix some kind of a breakage or problem on the line. But usually if the filler is down, nothing else is able to produce because, like I said, you have no jars. Similarly, if the filler is down, you're also not consuming whatever tank you were drawing that product from. And so basically, unless you have, again, a design or a system where you have multiple tanks that can be used in parallel to whatever tank you're discharging into the filler, you're going to be at a standstill. So once again, I've mentioned this concept of buffers, and I think this is also very important to understand. Buffers are one of the ways that you can reduce the bottlenecks at your specific site. And so a buffer in many ways is just a storage of your product coming out and going into a specific machine. So in this case, I've mentioned that there could be a long conveyor where you're basically storing the jars onto, and you're going into the sleever. Now, of course, this is not a silver bullet for any problem. So let's assume, and once again, going back to our rates, right? So here we had 190 cases per hour. If the rates are going to be slower at the beginning of the line, the buffers are only going to mitigate problems with the downstream. And this is a very important concept to understand. So for example, if you have more problems with your palletizer, then buffers will allow you to solve the problems when it's related to the bottleneck of the palletizer, because it's going to have more product than it's able to consume on the specific line. But if, for example, your bottleneck is the sleever, so it's unable to produce product, the likelihood of you installing buffers after the sleever to solve your bottleneck problem are going to be very slim and very niche based on the failures of the sleever, right? And the reason for that is because the buffer is going to be consumed faster by the downstream machinery than it's able to be filled up. So that's also a very important consideration as you're going through your process, as you're understanding some of these numbers. Now, this is the reason why a lot of the MES type of solutions will usually recommend for you to get your OEE metrics first, because OEE allows you to better understand what is the state of your line, what is the state of each individual machine at a glance. And it is not perfect. There's going to be obviously differences in how you collect OEE, if you're picking up the cases at the exit, if you're picking up the cases at the start of the machine, how you're picking up all the faults, how the operators are reporting some of the issues. But long story short, it gives you at a glance if you have a discrepancy between your machines. So for example, if your filler is running at 80% OEE and then your sleever is running at 60% OEE and your machines here it's 40 and 40, you can almost, and once again, I put that in caveat because that is not always true. You need to dig in a little bit deeper, but you can probably say that both of these machines are problematic for whatever reason. As you start digging a little bit more, maybe you can justify the 40% and understand that they are not the bottleneck for the specific line, but it should be the first indicator that maybe something is quite a bit different between those two machines and your filler. And however, as I said with the caveat, it is not necessarily an indicator of a problem. Maybe it's simply because they're being starved by the upstream machines. In this case, if the filler is 80 and the sleever is 60, that is unlikely. But again, a conversation is to be had. So as your teams start looking at some of these machines, I usually recommend breaking down this problem into different sections. You're probably going to have an operator at the filler, at the sleever. Chances of you having the same operator in your packaging area is going to be a little bit different. Also, looking at the process, you're probably going to have an operator that's looking at the cooking or batching or whatever that system is. So you need to start talking to the people working on that equipment and understanding what they're seeing from a deficiency and bottleneck standpoint, explaining to them some of these concepts so they could report better. Of course, getting the data from your control systems, your PLCs or your SCADA into an MES type of a solution can help as well, but that's going to be a little bit more complex as a starting point. And I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, if you have any concerns, if you have maybe a different application that I haven't covered here, don't hesitate to reach out. I work with multiple facilities in the space, so happy to get on a call and answer however best I can. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.